Welcome everyone to episode 19 of Twitch Tales. A brief recap on what happened last episode. Apis found themselves on their way to the Colton farm. Decided to have a little practice of the panpipes to try and get better at playing them. Rolled terribly again because Nightbot really wants us to be bad at the panpipes apparently. But they arrived at the farm without incident. They discovered Toria was working as a farmhand, a housemaid, to learn how to run a farm in case she does decide to take over Jack Creed's. We filled Toria in on all of the things that had happened with us and the goblins and everything like that. We also mentioned Edith and her apparent illness to her and said that she was looking for a protege or someone to learn from her before she passes. And would Toria be interested? She said that she would. We said that if it makes her feel safer on Jack Creed's farm, would she perhaps take on a bodyguard of sorts? And she mentioned that she's actually already looked into it. There's a new gentleman that's arrived on the farm, the Colton's farm, a bit of a traveller and an outsider, a ranger like Apis, called Mosh. And he's volunteered his services for a fee. We found that suspicious because Rob's just introduced a new NPC, and so they have to be suspicious, of course. They can't just be a regular guy who's just travelling in the world for verisimilitude. And so we went to talk to the other people on the farm. We found that the carpenter John was on the farm, and we asked him about what happened to his father when his father passed away while we were dealing with the goblins. What else happened last time, guys? We decided after talking to the carpenter to go and speak with this Mosh guy, see if he is suspicious or not. And we walked into the barn where he was. And we used for the first time our primeval awareness. We expended a spell slot and cast out our feelers in tuning ourselves with nature to the radius of the farm that we were standing on, looking specifically for fae, fiends and undead. And we got no sense of any of them on this farm. We then went and grabbed Toria from the farmhouse, and we set off walking back towards the town of Shadridge proper, about 45 minutes away. I think we ended there, didn't we? So it would be now. What time would it be? We got there about 2, so about 3 we arrived. We've been on the farm at least an hour. 4:30. I think I said the time at the end of the last one, but I'm trying to remember a week ago now. It was going to be about 5 or so, 5:30 or so by the time we arrived back in Shadridge, I think, which at this time of year means we've got about an hour left of the light. So as we arrive, we just crested the hill and saw something ahead in Shadridge. Or Rob was trolling us. Which do you think it might be, guys? So we arrive to see Shadridge in the distance. As it's starting to loom, we can see that there are people milling about on the streets. As we start to make out the details of them, we realise we don't recognise any of them. But that's not unusual. We don't know everyone in Shadridge. We continue to make our way towards Shadridge, and as we get to the town proper, what do you want to do? Ukuna wants to ask Edith if she's been having bad dreams. Sparrow thinks Mosh is still sus. Talked to him and the other lady in the barn, and he gave a sketchy look out the corner of his eye. Not enough evidence to vocalise our suspicions, but enough to make us sus on him. Fair enough. Fancy says we need to take Toria to Edith, of course. Want to cast primeval awareness for everything, says Katrina. Want to stop by the knights. And Man, yellow on parchment doesn't read very well, does it? Who is that? James is drunk, I think. Says I'm going with going to see Edith. Sylvania just wants to cast sleep. Sleep on everyone in the town. Sleep. Start by the knights. Alright, so people are saying go to Edith first. Some people are saying go to the knights first. Katerina is saying cast primeval awareness first. Are there any other options before I put those three to a poll? Those are your three options in the poll at the moment, guys. If you want any other particular options of what to do first and foremost, once you arrive in the town, we've got a couple other options that I can put into this poll. Do we have a spell slot? We do, yes. Just yell sleep and expect people to fall asleep. That's how Darren Brown does it. I think go to the baker tomorrow. Freezer the Ice Knight again wants to play the panpipes. Very, very consistent in that particular synapse of Apus's brain that really loves the panpipes. I want to go to the knights tonight. We want to be aware for the night. How far are the knights away? So walking through town, it doesn't take very long to get to the knights. The knights, you've not actually been to the outskirts, the makeshift barracks that was constructed on the edge of town, but you know where it is. You know it's on the opposite side of town to where you are, because you came in from the Colton's farm to the north east, and it's on the southwest of town. But it'll take like 10-20 minutes to walk through town to get to it. Maybe even less. I'd say like 10 minutes, yeah. When in doubt, play the panpipes. Alright, I'm going to have to put it to a poll then, and nobody's offered any other third option, so here are your three options of what to do. What to do first. Go to the knights, go to Edith, cast primeval awareness. Those were the three options that I saw coming up in the chat as Apus arrives at the edge of town. It's about an hour before the sun goes down, and then after the sun goes down you'll probably have half an hour or so of twilight before it actually gets dark. We don't have a wand of detect magic. You can see below us what all the things that we have in our inventory. We are carrying a longbow on our shoulder and a longsword on our hip. We're also wearing a cloak of many fashions, a cloak that can be changed into different colours, different cloaks to resemble other cloaks. Something to keep in mind when you're making this decision is that Apus has met a couple of the Knights of Kavosna about a week and a half ago, and specifically lied to them to tell them that they were also a Knight of Kavosna, but they were undercover, and they outranked the Badger that you were talking to. Badger being a rank within the Knights of Kavosna. We can cast Primeval Awareness and then go see Edith. We can use the Herbalism kit to make something to heal her ailments. We could try Red Bandana, but A, we're not proficient in Herbalism yet, and B, we bought it from the apothecary woman. So if anybody in town is proficient with Herbalism and making things to heal her ailments, it would be her. And she most definitely has tried everything she knows to try and heal her ailments, and it hasn't worked. So we would be unable. Did we ever use the Brewer's Kit? We have not yet you had use for the Brewer's Kit, no. Alright. With 79% of the vote, Apus overwhelmingly decides to take Toria to Edith first. With 18% of the vote wanting to cast Primeval Awareness, and only 3% of the vote wanting to go visit the Knights first. So as we arrive on the outskirts of town, there's a chill breeze in the air. The sun is still up because it's shady in the morning in Shadridge. That's actually where it gets its name. It's built on a ridge that is shaded over by a mountain range to the east. But it's still got the evening air. The sun is quite low in the sky though, so it's a little bit chilly. It's quite early spring still, so we're not too far out of winter. We decide to take Edith to go and to take Toria, who's with us, to go and see the apothecary Edith, just because that's the reason for bringing Toria to town anyway, and the sooner we can get to this frail old lady the better, especially if there's something malign happening. So we walk through town looking around us for faces that we do or don't recognize. Do I roll it now or later? I'm going to roll it now. Alright, so if I remember correctly, perception is going to be the 4th one, and it's a check, so this one. Yes! I'm loving these hotkeys that I've got set up. Perception check, that is a 19. Okay. 19. Alright. That is the sort of check that I have rolled now for an event in the future. But I'm keeping an eye on how perceptive Apis is being as they walk. But Apis doesn't notice the thing that they might notice later. If that makes sense. They might be able to think back to this moment with a 19 perception check and know something if it comes up later. Which, if I'd done it afterwards, would be like a flashback to this point to then see how perceptive they were being as they were walking. It makes sense to me. That's all that really matters. So Apis walks through the town, keeping an eye on who's around. It doesn't take very long, only a couple of minutes to walk this very small hamlet to the building that is Edith's apothecary. Translation: something's about to go down. Not necessarily. Like, you notice it, but it's not till later that you notice another piece of the puzzle fits together with it. That's a much more descriptive way of saying what I rambled on about, yes. You've noticed something that you don't know is important until later. You've noticed... I was checking to see if you noticed something that you may later realise the importance of. Sus levels intensify. Please let Edith be alive. I want to get to the flashbacks as soon as possible. You arrive at Edith's shop. You see that there is a sign on the door that says closed, hanging the other way. It's got a small glass pane in the door, but it's otherwise just a nice wooden door, simple, quite soft wood. Just the sort of stuff made from trees that grow nearby. It's probably been made and hung by John or his father, maybe. You knock on the door. There's no answer. You wait for a minute or two. You knock again, louder. There's no answer. Toria says, This is her shop, yes? Does she live here also? I don't know if Apis would know whether she lives here also. Most people tend to live in their shops, so Apis would probably assume that Edith lives here also, but doesn't know for a fact. What do you guys want to do? Kick the door in? Are we sure that she's home? Shout out? Break down the door? Does she live in the shop as well? That's where I just said, like, Apis doesn't know for sure. Most people live in or above their shops, yeah. Especially in a tiny frontier town like this. We shout out. A few people saying we shout out. Edith! You home? Edith! There's no answer. We can go to our baker friend and ask where she lives. Circumnavigate the building, peer in the other windows. That's easy enough to do. We try to open the door. It's locked. Does she have an hours open poster? It says that the opening hours are from 9 till 5, or sun up to sundown kind of thing. Sun up to just before sundown, I guess. All right, so let's make a poll. Few different decisions on what to do now. So your poll starts now. What to do? Do we break in through the front door? We could easily smash this window and get in, or we could give the lock a swift kick and it would splinter the wood. We could walk around the building trying to find another way in, like an open window or a back door or a drain pipe to shuffle up, something like that. We could ask the neighbours whether she lives here and whether they've seen us tonight, that sort of stuff. We could go to the Knights of Kavosna, or we could use our magic key to try and see if it works on this lock. It's a one-use item, so if it works, it disappears. Can't come back. Edith is showing signs of a strange illness that kills in days. The last time we broke in to check on someone, they weren't home and we got in trouble for it. Yeah, we got in trouble with our mum. But circumstances have different. Circumstances are very different in this situation and the last, though, Sparrow. So Apis may remember that moment, but think that this time it warrants it. I don't know. If she just happens to live somewhere else or is visiting, this will all seem like a big overreaction if we break in or even just report to the Knights. She was fine a few hours ago. The neighbours are sus, Sylvania says. Indecisive as Apis. Apis is already indecisive with 100 people talking in their head about what to do. Even if we use the key, it's kind of breaking in, yeah, but it wouldn't like break the lock or the door and need replacing at least. It would still be breaking in, but without the damage done. Apis is not quite as clear-minded about this decision as others, but with 41% of Apis being of the opinion that they should ask their neighbours, that's what they decide to do. 37% say to check for another way in. So as they go to their neighbours, they're going to look back over their shoulders to see if there's an obvious other way in without having to look for it. With only 15% wanting to break in through the door, only 5% wanting to go to the Knights, and only 2% wanted to use the mystery key. So Apis decides. They think back to the moment, like 13 years ago or so, when they went to the forest and had interesting dealings with a denizen of the town that they were then living in, Shaf Gushel, an old man by the name of Old Man Jennings. And then having reason to be suspicious of whether or not he was safe, they broke into his house and found that he wasn't there. And then started going through his belongings and smashing open his belongings chest and things. And then they went home and told their mother this, and their mother admonished them severely about the importance of privacy, of breaking into other people's houses not being okay, and all that sort of stuff. So Apis is now thinking back on that and moments away from breaking the window maybe, and then thinks, nah, we better just ask around first, make sure that Edith actually lives here. So they set off away from the shop to the nearby buildings that they can see, the other residences and such. And they glance over their shoulder and they do see that there are windows in the upper floor to this building. So it does obviously have 2 floors, and it would indicate that maybe there is a living residence above the shop. None of the windows upstairs seem to be open. From what you can see from this angle, you can only really see 2 of the walls: the front shop front and the side of one wall. But you make your way through the town towards some other building before you see a human man, probably in his late 30s, early 40s. He's walking. He's seems to be dressed relatively nicely for someone in a frontier town. It's like it's not dressed up fancy, but it's he's dressed in decent middle class clothing. He sees his approach and kind of nods, and then we hold our hand up to kind of stop him and say, "Excuse me, pal, do you happen to know if Edith, do you know Edith?" And he says, "Of course, everyone knows everyone here. I'm looking for her. Do you know where she'll be right now?" And he says, "Well, she'll be in." And "Does she live here?" "Yeah, of course." Right. And she doesn't go out on a night to anything?" And he says, "No, not usually, especially not these days. She's been feeling really weak apparently, so she'll probably just be at home with a book or something." And the dread grows within us as we realise, okay, she is probably at home and hasn't answered. Maybe she's asleep. She's an elderly lady feeling drained of energy. Maybe she's just gone to sleep early. So we thank this guy, and he continues on. We notice that he's walking in the direction of Gretchen's inn, the Lucky Loot. Maybe he's going to go have a drink in the evening. So the rest of Apus's mind takes over and says, okay, the next thing you wanted to do was to check for another way in. So we turn around and we start to walk back towards Edith's place. Yeah, we start to walk back towards Edith's place. And we can see that there's no obvious way in through the front or back, front or side of this shop. But we walk around the back of it, and you can see that there is like a little fenced-off area. It's the fence only comes up to about 4 feet tall, which for us is almost all of our height, being a dwarf. But we could easily climb over it if we had to. It's just a simple stick and wire fence. And it's just housing like a back door entrance to the shop and a bit of a herb garden where Edith grows a lot of the herbs and the spices and the fragrant things that she uses, the ingredients to her potions and salves and spells and things. The back of this fence does have a bit of a gate, so we walk around to the gate and we try it, and the latch is open. We open it and we walk in. We walk up the garden path towards the back of the back door, and we try the back door, and it is also closed and locked. This one doesn't have a window in it, it's just a simple wood door to the back of the shop. Looking at the windows, we can see that there is not a window open on the ground floor. However, looking up towards the top floor, there is a window up there that is open. It is open. It's one of these that opens sideways like that, and so it's ajar like this, and there's like a little stick holding it open, a little latch of sorts keeping it open, which may just be for ventilation or keeping a nice spring air circulating in the house. So what do you want to do now? We need to make an assessment of how urgent the situation is. Break in with stealth so no one knows we were there. Alert the authorities. Do we have time to ask at the tavern or report to the knights? Break in not stealthily, we have nothing to hide. We are really worried. A lot of you are worried. I think we should go to the knights. I don't feel comfortable breaking in. Fons says this part of Apis has seen too many mob movies and thinks we need to make sure Toria is down with breaking in, as we seem to be. So she's guilty, right? Yeah. So Apis turns and says, "Toria, what do you? I'm not going to lie here. I think I'm kind of worried that she's in but not answering. Now that we see the window is open, we try again. Edith, are you in? I'm going to roll another perception check. That is a 7. We don't hear any sort of response or any movement from inside. Can we see any light inside? You can't. It doesn't seem like there's any lights on in the upper floor. Get Mel to go through the window? Yeah, Mel would be with us, right? Mel would be around. Oh no, actually Mel isn't around. Mel is recuperating on Jack Reed's farm. This is the last day that she needed to have a recover from her internal injuries or damage. Ask the knights for permission to break in. It's their job. Get Toria's opinion. Ask Toria. Alright, a few people wanted to ask Toria. You say, I don't know what we should do here. And Toria says, I mean, what state are you in? What state was she in when you saw her? Do you think this is urgent? Like, are you afraid that she might be dead? And you say, I don't know. I think there might be a possibility. And Toria says, well, look, it's not my decision to make. If we feel like she's in danger, I could stay here while you go to fetch the knights, and then we don't feel guilty about doing it, breaking into her place, especially if she's just asleep. We don't want to wake an old lady from her sleep if she's feeling drained of energy. We should have somebody here with her, though. Do I stay here while you go get the knights, or you stay here while I go get the knights? I don't mind which. So that's her opinion, that one of you should stay and watch out for danger while the other person goes to get the knights. Magic rope to get us to the top window. We do have a magic rope. We could climb in through the top window with it. Play panpipes. play panpipes. If she's awake, if she's asleep, that'll certainly wake her up the way that we play. I'm still not sold on breaking in, but if we already lied to the knights about our rank, maybe we can get away with breaking in. Yep, that's a good point. If the knights already believe that we are an undercover knight of Kvosna, which they do, as far as we know, then if we break in, we can always then go to them and say, oh, as part of my duty as an undercover knight of Kvosna, I had to break into the house, blah, blah, blah. We would be further deepening our involvement with this lie, but it might get us out of it if they continue to believe us. The window is not low enough that we could boost Toria up to it, but we have a magic rope of climbing, which can reach up and attach itself to things. Send her to the knights. There's a lot of dissenting choice here. You like what Asmiel says? Asmiel said what? Cast primeval awareness while she goes to get the knights. All right, I'm trying to narrow down which options to use for the poll here. All right, I'm gonna put a poll together. Or maybe I should just ask one person what to do. Yeah, I feel like maybe it's there's a lot of different voices, so maybe I think it's going to be a one-person job. All right, so how this is going to work is in a moment I'm going to give you a code word that you're going to use. If you want to be in with a chance to decide what Apis is going to do right now, you're going to write this code word. The code word is going to be exclamation mark Edith, E-D-I-T-H, exclamation mark Edith. That will enter you into the draw to decide definitively what Apis is going to do right now. That way I don't have to narrow it down to multiple choice. Instead I can just allow all of you infinite choice. But it's just that one part of Apis, one synapse within Apis's mind goes, boom, I'm taking charge. It's like a bit like inside out, is that what it's called? Where just one of the emotions suddenly takes charge and goes, right, this is what we're doing. Mythical Turian, can you make a little announcement to say that you're still in the chat, please? Can just be a thumbs up emote or something. We can make an investigation check, see if she's around yet. Investigation would be, I think, this one. Yes. An 8. With an 8, we look around the garden. There are some rocks. There's a nice little rockery amidst all of the like herb gardens and things. We don't find any fake rock with a key under it or anything. Alright, Mythical Tyrion. Have a think about what it is you're going to do now. Hopefully you've already thought about it. So type it out, let us know what is Apis going to do right now. Apis is currently standing at the back door of Edith's place. There's an open window up on the second floor. The first floor, depending on how you count your floors. Toria is with us. The knights are about a 5 to 10 minute walk away. Probably about 10-minute walk away. Stay near the house, send her to the knights. Alright. Mythical Tyrion, investigate around the house for anything suspicious while we send Toria to go visit the knights. That's what we do then. So Apis turns to Toria and says, right, You go grab the knights, tell her that I have reason to believe that Edith might be in danger, and so I'm going to break in if they're not here in the next, I don't know, it probably takes you like 5 or 10 minutes to get there, so if they're not here in like 15 to 20 minutes, I'm breaking into this house. And then Tori says, right you are, and she hops over the fence to cut the corner a little bit and sets off back towards the main street of town, and she seems to be going at quite a clip. Meanwhile, we are going to be investigating the house, investigating for anything suspicious. So we are looking for... So here's the thing with how I work investigation checks. If you tell me something specific that you are looking for, the more specific you are, the lower the DC is. If you're looking for if you just say, can I investigate? And don't tell me what you're investigating for, then that means you're investigating the plant beds, you're investigating the rockery, you're investigating the walls of the house and the doors and the door frames and the windows, and you're looking in the house and you're looking around the house, you're looking at the fence, you're looking at the people walking by. And because you're looking and investigating just everything, looking for anything suspicious, the chance that you find any one particular thing is quite slim. But if you say, I am looking specifically at the rockery that's next to the back door, then you're spending all of that time just investigating that one patch, and you're looking for one specific area. And so the chance that you find anything suspicious about that is lower. But the chance that you find something in a different area is nil. So it's up to you. You can keep it vague with a high DC, or you can make it general. You can make it specific with a low DC, or anywhere in between. So Mythical, what with that in mind, what are you investigating for? And that helps me to set the likelihood that you find anything. Mythical says we're looking for any trace of intrusion or anything magical, maybe. Okay, gotcha. Any trace of intrusion. So that's a specific thing. That tells me you're looking at the windows, the doors, the door frames, that sort of thing. So I'm going to roll an investigation check, and we'll see what, if anything, Apis discovers. Investigation is control 6, I think. Yes. Nat 1. A nat 1! So here's how Lucky Horseshoe works. We have Inspiration and Lucky Horseshoe. Let me pop across to the battle map there to see. You can see way over that side, you can see that we have Inspiration and a Lucky Horseshoe. If you want to, you can use either Inspiration or Lucky Horseshoe to reroll that nat 1. We got a nat 1 on Investigation. If you want to use either Inspiration to reroll with advantage or Lucky Horseshoe to reroll with a luck point, you can do so. Mythical Tyrion, it's your decision. Mythical Tyrion says, of course, it was a nat 1. Alright, so I'm going to pop over to the battle map. I'm going to grab that Inspiration and I'm going to turn it off. We use our Inspiration to reroll the investigation check. And this time we get a 13 plus 3. So we get a 16 total. With a 16, Apis investigates the back door very closely first. In the time that it takes Toria to get to the knights and back again, it's going to be at least 15 minutes. So Apis takes those 15 minutes to investigate the back door first. There is a keyhole into which a large brass key could fit and unlock the door. If we had thieves' tools, we could potentially pick this lock, but we don't have thieves' tools or proficiency with them. So we're not the lock-picking type. We look through the keyhole, it's very dark inside. We can see with our dark vision, we can see that it seems to be like a kitchen. We don't see many details of it through a keyhole, obviously. The keyhole doesn't seem to have any scratches around it, like it's been picked. There's a couple of like really old-looking dints that seem to have been there a long time, like maybe an elderly woman has frailly put a key against the lock and, bumped and scratched it a little bit from that. But it doesn't seem like there's any fresh cuts. All of the cuts and dings and dints in the brass handle and lock of this door seem to be of an older, weathered nature. They all seem to have the oxidation. We tried the door. Obviously, it's locked. We looked at the handle before we tried the door, and it doesn't. There's nothing to indicate when the last time it was used would have been. It's not like a handle would collect a lot of dust or anything. We look at the frame around the door. There's no sign of crowbar entry or any sort of splintering of the wood. The wood around the door seems perfectly fresh, like it seems old, but it seems like it's not been nicked or cut or damaged or bruised or bashed about since it was installed. Same for the door itself, and obviously we can't see the hinges of the door, but there's nothing on the other side of the door where the hinges would be to indicate that anything is broken that way. So we're pretty confident that if something is broken in, it's got in with a key that then locked it behind itself, or it's picked the lock with proficiency and then locked it behind itself somehow. But no, there's nothing to say that the door has been damaged. We then move on to the downstairs window. We sort of have to step carefully through some of the flower beds to get beneath the window of the house. And being a dwarf, we're kind of like here on the window ledge. We can look through the window, especially up on tippy toes, and we can see that it's very dark inside. There's no lights or lamps or lanterns lit, but we can see with our dark vision that it is indeed a kitchen, and more than that, a bit of a dirty kitchen, like not in that there's food left out, but in that it's cluttered. A cluttered kitchen, I suppose I should say. It seems to be used dual purpose for food, but also for brewing. It seems like this is her laboratory as well as her kitchen. We can see pots and pans and beakers and bowls and various containers of various shapes and sizes and material. There's glass, there's clay, there's metal bowls as well, and they're all just left about the place in a cluttered but clean, I'd say, if that makes sense. Like it's kept well. She like doesn't leave product just like dripping off of the shelves and stuff. It's not filthy. It's just she's got a lot of it and run out of space. We look around the window itself. The glass is intact. The windowsill is made of wood and sealed with wax, it seems. Doesn't seem to be any damage to the window frame or the window itself. No damage to the pane glass. If they got in through the downstairs window, they've definitely got in through with magic or some other means. We take a step back, crushing a couple of flowers by accident, as we do. Oops. We take a step to the side and then step back out of the flower bed. We look back up at the window, calling out again, "Edith! Edith!" as loud as we can. "Edith, are you awake? Are you in there?" There's no response. We see that the window is left open. It's wide enough that a person could fit through it. A human-sized person of not the largest stature could easily fit through this window, but you'd have to climb up to it. The outside of the building is made of stonework, so it's potentially climbable, but it would be very difficult to climb it without some sort of climbing equipment. With a 16, I think that's about all you get. You go back around the front briefly. After about 10 minutes, you go back around the front to await Toria coming back, and you investigate the front door as well. Same sort of indications as the back door. It seems like it has been locked a couple of times with a person with a shaky hand, perhaps. But other than that, it's intact. There's no smashed windows on the front either. So with your investigation check, there is no obvious signs of intrusion. And not being proficient in magic, there's no way that you would know whether there was any magical influence either. Seems more likely she took a sudden turn or is feeling more sick and asleep, maybe. Going back to my original theory, she's on the loo, and if we break in, we'll have some explaining to do. I think she's just asleep. How long is Toria gone? So now she's been gone about 12 minutes or so. Starting to think she's just out about town. We're slow to trust, treat everything as sus. I'm going to make another check here. Perception would be, I think, 4. Yeah. No, persuasion. Wait, is that persuasion? I meant perception. Perception. I hit 4 instead of F4. My bad. 21. Okay. Oh, somebody's starting drilling next door. That's fun. So with a 21 perception check, as we're waiting by the front of the store, we're waiting for Toria to get back. It's not like we have a pocket watch or anything. There's no way of telling the time other than just like the sun and our general sense of how fast time has been moving. So we're pretty sure that she's been gone about 15 minutes, and we're getting to the verge where we'll have to break our way in. So you've positioned yourself so that you can see the front of the building, you can see the street on which the other residences and building and businesses are found, and you can see down in the direction of where the Knights of Gavosna would be, and so you can see from a distance when Toria comes running back with them. You've also positioned yourself so that you can see down the side of this building and the side of the fence that indicates the back lawn. You catch a glimpse of movement down that way, as if somebody had passed in front of one of the oil lanterns that stands illuminating this street at night time. You could have sworn that you saw a shadow of something just flicker across the side of the wall. You turn that way and you don't see what it would have been. It would have passed the corner too quickly. Do you give chase around? Like, do you leave the front of the street to go to the back to see if you can see anybody running or not? Like a big something, yeah. Like a humanoid-sized something. You can use an up emote yay and a down emote no. Do you follow it? Do you leave your post on the front of the shop to go back towards the back of the shop to see if you can see what it was that just cast this shadow as it ran in front of one of the street lamps? Most people saying yes. Yes, yes, yay. James is drunk says no. Red Bandana says no, they might be leading us away for a reason. Lunia also says no, but the vast majority of people are saying yes. So Apis has a couple of moments of hesitation, thinking whatever it is might be deliberately trying to lead us away, but ultimately thinks the knights are on their way. They're surely only a minute away by now. Boom, and so they just set off running. They run down to the back of the shop and they glance around. You can see the sort of the fields that spread down the hills that indicate the ridge that Shadridge is built on top of. The fields sort of roll down away from you, away from the town. Edith's shop is built on the outskirts of this very small hamlet, as most things are. It's hard to be in the centre of a hamlet this size. So you run down to the back of her shop and you look both ways. You're standing right beneath the street light now. And so there are shadows being cast. And from where you are, your shadow is being cast against the side of the wall where you saw this other shadow being cast momentarily that caught your eye. But you don't see any other figure. It's obviously either ducked around the other side of Edith's shop and is now running back towards the front street, or it ran down the hill, out of sight, down towards the sort of open plains of where, in the direction of where the fair woods would be, at the bottom of this shady ridge. Or your mind was playing tricks on you potentially. What do you guys want to do now? This smells fishy. Circle around the front of the shop and check the other side. I'm trying to blend the noise and the drilling. We know it's your stomach rumbling. You know me too well, Snafu. Somebody's drilling hot holes in Edith's wall as burglars. We could cast Primeval Awareness. We could if we want. Primeval Awareness. Too risky for Edith. Where is Toria? Alright, so poll real quick. Just a real quick 1 minute one. We are a tracker, yeah. We look down and there's nothing on which we could track. This is not a muddy town. There's no mud or anything that would have left any surface on which there would be tracks. If whatever it was hasn't like bled, so there's no trail of blood, there's no muddy footsteps, there's nothing that we can track right now. Sit down with one of our books and chill and wait for the guards. Potentially, yeah. Primeval awareness, remember, for those who don't know or weren't here last time. Primeval awareness, you set the radius around you in which you are looking, up to a mile, and then within that radius you decide which creature types that you want to use. So here we go at primeval awareness. So there's a lot of things to decide about primeval awareness. So this time I'm going to instead of making it a series of polls, which took a long time, I'm going to make it a keyword giveaway thing situation. The Stickster. Can you make it a little... Can the Stickster put a little thumbs up or something to say that you're still actually in the chat? Awesome, you are here. So the Stickster, which on that list of things, which ones are we looking for? We have, let me grab it and post it for you so that it's really clear which ones we can choose. We can choose any number of these things. You can choose all of them or just one of them or anything in between. Aberrations, celestials, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends and undead. You can choose any of them. And then you also choose what's the radius from yourself that you want to look for these things in. What are these words? Aberrations are things that are completely alien, things that come from a different realm of existence. Things like Cthulhu and Great Old Ones, eldritch horrors and beholders and mind flayers. These are aberrations. Celestials, anything from the upper planes, gods, angels, unicorns, those things are celestials. Dragons, anything draconic. Elementals, anything made out of the elements. Fae, anything from the Feywild, pixies and sprites and that sort of stuff. Fiends, anything from the lower planes, so devils, demons, Yugoloths. And undead, anything that was once living and is now not, like zombies and skeletons and vampires. We're not within a mile of the forest though, Felagund. Yep, last time on the Colton's farm, an hour ago, we searched for undead, fae and fiends. Thing moving away could have been a cat in the night. It seemed like it would have been larger than a cat in order to cast shadow up the wall. I think Apis would consider how much solid information they have about the form of threat they have. We don't usually have a good idea of what form the enemy takes yet. Aberrations and fiends. What do you think, Sixter? Just aberrations? Are we looking for anything else other than aberrations? We've got a quarter mile. Quarter mile will encompass the majority of this town. There are a couple of things on the outskirts of town that might not be included, like the carpenter's shop, maybe the knights from where you are. Aberrations and celestials within a quarter mile. Alright. That is what Apis will search for then. So, where do our battle map, and then spells. Pop goes the spellberry. So Apis thinks back to a moment before, back on the farm, about an hour ago, when we had this moment of clarity, looking for the feeling of the stories we were told as a child, the fae stories, the stories of fiends and the stories of undead, and how those individually made us feel, and whether we felt that at all from anything on the farm. And then we stand here at the back of Edith's shop, and we start. Our mind races to, what else could it be? What else could this thing be? Is it a person that's affecting us? Is it something from another realm? That your mother was very light on the stories of things from other realms. You weren't you didn't really like them so much as a kid. The stories of Cthulhu and beholders, and they were rather scary. You didn't really enjoy those stories, so you didn't learn too much about them. You also, as you got older, realised that there probably aren't that many stories about them because they're so otherworldly and different that a lot of people don't have information on aberrations. They give you a chilled, creeped feeling when you think of aberrations. And you focus on whether you feel that. But before it leaves you, you also think about stories of people being encountered by celestials, things from the upper planes, angels and gods, creatures that were sent to help or to bring people on quests. And the sense of warmth that's almost directly opposite to this sense of chilled dread that you get from aberrations. Instead, you get a sense of warmed comfort. You don't feel either one. You don't feel like anywhere within a quarter mile of you there are aberrations or celestials. Nowhere within this town, except potentially the outskirts, the very outskirts, maybe the Knights of Kavosna or the Carpenter's place. They might be just on the outskirts of that quarter mile radius from you. You don't feel like there's celestials or aberrations in this town. It includes a quarter mile down as well, so there's nothing buried beneath the town that seems to be creepy or whatever. So in the time it takes Apis to stand here and do this, it's only a few seconds, but it's enough time for this, whatever it is, to, if it did run up the shop way, it's probably gone out onto the streets now, and unlikely that you would find it. But all the same, you set off back the way you came, up the side of the shop, and back onto the street. And you look around, and there are a couple of people around, but you're not sure whether they were there before or not. Any one of them could have been the thing that just ran up the other side of the house, if indeed that's what it did. You look off in the direction of where this street leads, and you see returning 3 women. You see Toria, and behind her, she's moving at a bit of a clip, and she's sort of gesticulating out in front of her. And behind her, very close on her heels, also moving at a bit of a clip, let me find my NPCs. So coming at a bit of a clip down the road is Toria, and then on her, hot on her heels is a human female, middle-aged-ish, with a blue cape attached to her shoulders. She's wearing a bracer that's leather and adorned with some iron slats. She's got a long sword on her hip, and she's got dirty blonde hair that's pulled back into a ponytail. You know her to be Kathleen, and the blue cloak. It signifies that she is of Badger rank within the Knights of Kavosna. To her left shoulder, and following a few steps behind, is a woman that you haven't met. She seems to be a very attractive young woman, probably in her early 20s or so. She's got quite light tanned skin. She's also wearing a bracer, but hers is leather. She's got a long sword on her hip, and she's brunette. Her brunette hair just kind of comes down to her shoulder in a bit of a bob. And they come running along the street towards you. It takes another minute or so from where you can see them to where they actually get to you, and when they get to you, Toria doubles over and then she steps off to the side, and you say, "Right, I'm glad you got here. You didn't see anyone running along the street, did you?" And Kathleen, who is also a little bit, but is a little bit more fit, says, "Running? No. Did you see somebody leave?" No. Yes and no. I saw movement, but I thought I saw somebody. I didn't though. I didn't actually see them. I just kind of saw movement in the corner of my eye. She goes, "Right. All right. Well, I think you're right in saying that, given what has happened, it might be worth talking to her. But let's first see if we can get her to answer the door. And you kind of like, yeah. Well, I've already tried that. And she says, right, yes, I'm sorry. I defer to your judgment. You are the higher ranking officer here, anyway. And you say, yeah, right. What do we want to do, guys? She's giving us she's brought it up that we outrank her, and it seems like she still has no reason to doubt that. What would we do? Are we gonna come clean at this stage and say actually about that, or are we gonna just go along with the lie? What do you reckon? Is there any other option? If this is just a 2-option thing, then we can put it down to a yes or no, which is easier to poll. I think it's just a 2 thing. Do we fess up or not right now? So the question is, are we going to come clean and say that we're not actually a Knight of Kvosna at this moment right now? Yes if you think yes, no if you think no. If you want to fess up but just later, then no, you don't want to fess up now. If you don't want to fess up at all, then obviously no. So yes or no? Ooh, we've got a yes and a no, 2 yeses and a no, a yes and 2 no's, so it's still even. A no and a yes, still even. Yes and a nay, a yes and a no. Ooh, this is going to be. All right, this is not an obvious. This is not an obvious majority. Lots of no's, some yeses. Defer to her experience and ask her to use her determination, but add that you are really concerned for Edith. Ooh, this is going to have to be an official poll because it's not obvious enough for me to make a call from emotes alone. There could be consequence. In the real world, impersonating a police officer is very much a hefty crime that is heavily policed. You get a decent fine and some jail time. It may be the same here. Apis has not had reason to deal with the knights too much. It's a tough decision. Do we come clean right now? Is it the right thing to do right now? Do we come clean after we know that Edith's safe? We do have a magic cape that can make us look like whatever we want. Obviously we wouldn't have the other knight's insignia on us, we wouldn't have the bracer. But we could make our cloak look like a cloak of whatever. You feel like Kathleen would be sensible enough to concentrate on the urgent matter at hand? Exactly 50-50. With exactly 50% of the vote saying yes to fess up, and exactly 50% saying no to not fess up right now. It's going to come down to a dice roll, isn't it? This is why democracy doesn't work, god damn it. Odds we are not going to fess up right now. Evens, we decided that we're going to come clean right now. So she says, yes, of course, I will defer to your judgment, of course. You are the ranking officer here. And you say, right, yeah, it's not the job that I was sent here for, but I do think it is important that we make sure that Edith is safe. So whether that means breaking down the door and paying for it later or not, I think it's important that we go in. And she says, right, you are then. And in that moment of very, very split decision where Apis' synapses are screaming at each other, we just decide to not yet come clean. And she says, would you like me to do the honours then? I think a swift kick will break a door like this, and we can always get the carpenter to fix it up again. And we say, aye, after you. And we take a step back, and she boom, big swift kick. It splinters the door in without even needing to roll for it. It's a fairly soft wood door that's not designed to keep people out if they really want to get in. So she smashes in the door. Splintering sound echoes throughout the shop. And then she shouts, "Edith! We have reason to believe that you're in danger, so we're coming in. I'm sorry about your front door." And she starts to make her way in. She makes her way in, and we follow. So she smashes the door down. Boom! She comes in, shouts that to Edith, and then sets off across the shop and towards the back door. As she opens the back door into the kitchen area that we saw before, it's not locked and no interior door is locked. She makes her way round the corner, round past the back door, and into a stairwell that leads upstairs. And we follow, followed by Toria and the other lady, the other seemingly a knight of Kvosna that we haven't met yet. And as she gets upstairs before us, she gets to the bedroom door and bam, 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 bam. "Edith, we're coming in." And then she opens the door, and then she gasps. We follow up the stairs right behind her. And as we get to the door, we see why she gasped. We see a bedroom that is clearly designed and lived in by an old lady, furnished in old lady furnishings. It's got that smell of your grandma's house, and it's got that a stair line, a stair runner that has just an awful pattern on it. It runs along the upstairs corridor and to a door at the end. The door is now ajar, and we can see into the room this horrible pallid carpet that's just like got this eyesore of a rug in the middle of it, and a bed that stands on one side with a footer and a header that seems to have been designed by probably the carpenter in town on request as to the design that Edith wanted. And sitting in a clawfoot armchair next to the bed is what seems to be a skeleton with skin on, wearing Edith's clothes that we saw her in before. The skeleton kind of raises its head and looks to us with sunken eyes and speaks in a very, very, very pale, very frail voice.
"Please, help me."
And she raises her hand in what seems to be taking her every single ounce of energy in her body to even raise her limp wrist, which seems to just be this thinnest of persons, emaciated beyond belief, seems to have withered away. The very muscles in her body seem to have just disappeared and left behind just skeleton and tendons and sinew, and her skin covering it. Her hair still droops down as it was before and seems to be fine. She seems to still be alive, but she is in a state that makes you think like she shouldn't be able to. She shouldn't have the musculature to even have her heart beat blood around her body anymore. She is pale, as if the blood is having a hard time beating its way to the skin, but she is alive. Kathleen runs over the room, like drops her what was she carrying? No, she didn't have her sword out, does she? She just runs over to the room and drops down to her knees, takes her frail hand and says, Edith, we're here now. It's okay. You're okay. You're going to be safe. And frantically looks around the room. What do we do? What do we do, guys? What do we do? What do we do in this moment? Cure wounds. Cure wounds. Cure wounds. Cure wounds. A lot of people agreeing on cure wounds. We only have one spell slot left. Is this okay? Is anybody against Cure Wounds? Put a thumbs down no or a nay or something like that in the chat if you are against using Cure Wounds. It's our last spell slot of the day. Always helps those in need. Bagel says no, of course. We have a healing potion as well if we want to use it. It does the same thing effectively, like Cure Wounds and healing potion both heal hit points. Bagel grabs the sharpest knife she got. All right. There was no no's other than Bagel, and so we rush forwards. And conjuring the nature of the surroundings of this particular very rural hamlet. We call on the nature around us and the nature gods to provide healing for this woman. We run over and we place our hand on her arm, and as we do so, we just feel bone. There is just no muscle beneath it at all. We feel bone alone, and bone and skin, and she feels cold to the touch. We don't think about that as we draw on. What's my healing god called? I'm blanking on the name. What is she called? Flonenshale, thank you. We try not to think about it as we draw on the powers from Flonenshale to heal and to bring back life. And we feel that familiar warmth spread down from our chest, through our shoulders, into our arms and in fingertips and palm, and we press that goodness, that light, that life into Edith's body. Instantly we see some of the darkness around her eyes seems to go away. The bloodshot eyes seem to come back to their normal vision, their normal appearance. She seems to have like some cracking to her skin that seems to that stitch itself back together. She gets a little bit more rosy in the cheeks, but she is still stick thin. None of her musculature comes back. She is skeletanoid, like a skeleton covered in skin that is barely able to lift the muscle in her tongue to speak. And behind her, the open window. So even though she was sitting right beside the window as you were shouting up to see if she was awake and there, you realise why you couldn't hear her response is that you're standing 2 feet away from her and you can barely hear her. So Cure Wounds seemed to do something. It seemed to heal something within her, but it didn't bring back even an inch of her muscles. She's still frail and emaciated. What do we do? Take her to the gym. Did we follow the shadow? We saw a shadow move, which caught our eye. We thought it was somebody running along the back of the house, so we ran down to the back of the house to follow, by which time it had gone. We didn't know which way it went. I put the poll to chat to what to do, whether to follow it round that side of the house, whether to follow it down the hill in case it went that way, whether to run back the way we came to see if we can cut it off as it comes back up onto the front street, if that's where it went, or to cast Primeval Awareness. And in the moment, Apis decided to cast Primeval Awareness instead, and so the whatever was causing that shadow seemed to have gotten away. Ask if we can get her something from downstairs. The salve, maybe. She does have some pots of salve downstairs. Ask what happened. Edith, can you tell? You notice in that moment that that Kathleen seems to be deferring to you as the person in charge here and waiting for you to make a decision on what to do. And so you take charge and you say, Edith, can you tell me exactly what happened here? You're going to be safe. We're here now. We're here for you. What has happened? What you don't look at all like I saw you." And she says, "It was so dark. It goes so dark. I couldn't. It seemed to come from me in the darkness. There was. It was standing in my room when I came up to read my book. It was here. It was in the shadow in the corner. You see, when I sat down, the lights went off. And it seemed to step forwards, but I couldn't see him. I just had a sense that he was there. And then it was on me. It was like in my dreams last night. I can't see this. Not. It was just so dark, and it was on. And the fingers grabbed me, and I just felt like she could just. I was muscle. And we realised that she's very difficult to hear from the whispering sounds that her voice is making, and obviously we're reminded in the moment that the tongue is a very thick muscle, and the glimpses of it that we can see through her teeth, it seems like even her tongue has withered to almost nothing. Her vocal cords don't seem to have the strength to even turn up her own volume. Her diaphragm definitely hasn't got the strength in the muscle anymore to push the air out that's needed to get to her voice. But we gathered from what we did pick up that he was waiting for me in the room, is what she seemed to have said. When I came up here to read a book, he was waiting for me in the corners over there, but she seemed to try to pick up her hand and point, and she couldn't. He was waiting for me over there, and then he seemed to come towards me, but I didn't see him. I just felt him. As he grabbed me, it seemed to pull my muscles. And it was something along those lines, but she got a little bit too quiet at the end. And she also said, yeah, he was waiting in the darkness. The darkness, it came from the darkness. And you realise now that you are standing in an unlit bedroom. There is an oil lantern right next to her on the table. One of those bulb ones that you can turn the oil on. You can change the pressure on the wick to change the flame size, but it is unlit. Let's light the room up, everybody's saying. Turn on all the lights, torches, lights. Alright, so you quickly you turn to Kathleen and say, turn that oil lantern on. And she lets go of Edith's hand with one hand, and she turns the wick to full. She brings the wick right out to full volume, as it were, and then pulls the bulb up. Takes out a flint from her pocket, and eventually it lights. She puts the bulb back down. It illuminates the room from the side table. You can see that there are dancing shadows being cast from Edith and you. There's like a creepy skeletal kind of shadow that's being cast on the wall on the other side of her bed, just from Edith herself sitting up in the chair. We turn round to the other knight that we don't know the name of yet, and we say, see if you can find any other lanterns, turn them on in the house. In Scottish. See if you can find any other light source in the house, lanterns, lamps, you name it, torches if you have to. Light up this house, every room. So we do that. We start lighting up the room. This attractive young knight of Kvosna turns and right you are, she says, and then leaves the room. And you can see her through the corridor. She turns off into another room that's up here, and you can hear her fumbling around in there. What else do you want to do? Edith has a shadow. Yes, she does. Close the window. Yeah, okay. So we get up and we look out the window. It looks down into the herb garden as before. Went from where we were looking up before, and we take the bar out of the window and pull the window shut and use that bar to close it from the inside. What time of day is it now? It is probably around 6-ish p.m. So you're probably getting towards the sundown time. It's probably you've got another like half hour of light at most. Half an hour before the sun goes down fully, and then you've got another like half hour of twilight before it's actually dark. Light the room, have the knights stay with her, try and find some potions for her downstairs. Knights should have a healer, Colin. I'm not in a tiny little frontier town like this. Edith, ironically, would be the town healer. I wasn't scared in real life until Edith's shadow, which seems to just form grotesque images and outlines the fact that her cheekbones are much more prominent than they should be. The skin that's already starting to sag with old age is now sagging even further, just loose over the top of what would have been flushing it out from beneath. It seems to just have this jowly effect under her skin, which dances across the wall in this grotesque imitation of humanoid, as if something has drawn a charcoal drawing of a human and then smudged it on the wall. Could be a ghost or a lich. We aren't experts on the undead, no we are not. Is Edith stable? She doesn't seem to be getting worse in your presence, but you've only been here 2 minutes or so. Check her body for any marks. She also said something that you might have caught, something about dreams. She said something like it was like my dreams. Check her body for marks. That makes sense. So so Apis says, "Listen, Edith, if you don't mind, I need to just check you over to see if there's any obvious signs that you're damaged in any way." And she says, "Yes." She seems to not be resisting in any way. Not that she could, even if she tried. So you carefully reach over and you take the what did I say? Like a lacy scarf that she was wearing before when you met her. You reach out and you carefully take it, and as your finger brushes past skin, it feels like the skin could be broken with the smallest force. It seems like she's made out of crepe paper. She's got that really thin old person skin. And you take the lace scarf off, which comes sliding along the neck until it reveals an old skin with liver spots. You can see all the way down. It seems again like the muscles in her neck are having a hard time even holding her head up. She seems to be quite lolling with that, kind of like a newborn baby that can't hold its own weight. Kathleen reaches up and gently just puts her head back against the chair rest, revealing her neck at the front, which seems to just reveal this trachea that you can see outlined by this saggy skin, and the bones at the back. But no bite marks. Nothing broken on the skin, it seems. We pull down on the front of her robes to the point where we can see that the collarbone is just prominent and sticking out, jutting sharp like it's an anatomical model. We trace we pull the robes down over the shoulders and just see the ball and socket joint of where the shoulder joint is, and the humerus is just clear to us, as if it has been drawn. We pull up her sleeves, check out her hands. They look like skeletanoid hands. There's no damage to her skin in any way. You can see lots of liver spots and lots of prominent veins pulsing as the blood is trying to get to the surface, but her pulse is very weak. We check her out as much as we can without stripping her naked, and it doesn't seem like we can see anything that has damaged her. She could still have some damage to her torso or abdomen or lower half. We haven't checked those out, but we haven't stripped her naked. A lot of people are saying grab some prince salve immediately, so we run down. We tell Tori to do, or we know what the prince salve is, so we probably just tell these two to stay here. You two stay with her a second, just make sure she doesn't move too much. You just rest, Edith, you're going to be fine now. We run downstairs to the front of the shop where we saw the cabinet. She's got a glass cabinet in which there were 3 bottles of prince salve. Do we just smash the cabinet, or do we look around for the keys? We did not check for undead when we used the primeval awareness, no. Can we check if that thing is still here or even in Edith? If you come up with a way that you would do that, sure. But how would you look for that? You don't really even know what it is. Send the knights downstairs to bring up any potions and salves. So as we've arrived in the shop front, we see this other knight down there as well, who is over in one corner with her back to us, manipulating something. She seems to jump as we turn round, and then she turns and you see that she's got a lantern in her hand, like a bullseye lantern that she's picked up from somewhere in the shop, and she lights it and hangs it up on the front of the shop door just next to the doorway, the smashed open doorway. You now see that there are two people on the street outside, curious and gathered. You don't make out who they are unless you actually want to go outside and see who they are, but there's a couple of people outside watching, interested in what's going on. Obviously a commotion in a small town like this obviously draws attention of people. Ask if the knights have any experts who might know who or what caused this. If you do ask Fel, then you risk giving away the fact that you're not actually a knight yourself. So it's an option. Ask her how we can help her to regain some strength. Damn, you guys are chatting so much. Man, I'm well behind. Holy cow, you guys are talking fast. I can't keep up with all of this. Alright. Keys, smash, keys, smash. Should we not use healing potions? So, Kat, you would know from talking with Delois about how they made potions and what goes into a potion and all of that. You would probably be somewhat aware that a healing potion does pretty much the same thing as a cure wounds. It heals hit points, and anything that a cure wounds wouldn't heal, healing potion probably wouldn't heal either. Prince Salve, however, heals completely differently. The mechanisms of how a Prince Salve works is completely different to how a healing potion works, so there's still a chance that Prince Salve could actually help. Smash it at this point. It's more urgent to heal her than preserve furniture. The keys do exist, she has them, but where does she keep them? Were they taken by the assailant? Who knows? Alright, it's going to be a poll, I think. Just a quick 1 minute poll as Apis runs into the room. They see this other knight fumbling with a lantern. Are we going to smash the cabinet, grab the Prince Salve and go upstairs and use it, or are we going to ask her for the keys? So we may have taken her out of death saves, but now need to restore her, potentially. Run upstairs and throw the jar of salve at her. This'll help! Smash! Oops. Feels like she might just suffocate on it if we try and force a potion in her. That is true. There are muscles in the esophagus that may not be working too well. Just takes time of our storyline to search the stupid keys. I feel like we should invest more into this miracle salve. Maybe. Use some salve, grease her up. With 59% of the vote, Apis decides, we've already smashed her door. That's fine. We've got a carpenter in town, I know that much. He can fix a door, no problem. But smashing it, like fixing glass in the medieval ages, that's a lot harder. And you don't know if there's a glass blower in town, but you haven't seen one. You haven't met the glass blower if there is one. So replacing the glass, ultimately Apis decides, shit, I know she's got keys. Let me look for them. Alright, so are we going to investigate for the keys? Control investigation is that, I think. Yep, there we go, with a 9. With a 9 investigation check, it takes us about 10 minutes of looking. After about 5 minutes of looking, we can't find the keys. We run upstairs. We ask, "Have you got the keys for your cabinet? I'm going to grab the Prince Salve." And she says, "Yes, in the kitchen." And very lightly we hear that the keys might be in the kitchen. So we run back downstairs. into the kitchen. We look behind the door. We're looking out in a couple of the cupboards. We don't see. Oh, here, bam! We find inside one of the cupboards there is a wall with like 3 hooks on it, and each of them have a different set of different small set of keys on it. We grab the keys that we hope to. We grab all of them, and we run through there. And it takes us. So after 10 minutes or so, we've managed to get this cabinet found. This key cabinet. I'm speaking hurriedly to try and like emphasize that Apis is moving fast and frantic, but I'm tripping over my own words. It takes about 10 minutes before we found the right key to the cabinet. We've opened it up and we've got the print salve. We know what print salve looks like. We've got an empty bottle in our own bag. We grab 2 of the pots and we just run upstairs. We happen to know from our own experience that using more than one application at a time won't add any additional effect. We just know that you can use print salve, you can benefit from print salve once every 6 hours or so. So we run upstairs, unscrewing one of these pots, and we throw it down and we say, "Excuse me, out of the way a second, I'm just going to apply some of this. Edith, I'm sorry about this, but I'm going to have to..." And you start to unbutton her blouse, and you open it up and start to rub some of this print salve over her neck and down her chest and across her shoulders, like in the parts where the vital organs are, where like hopefully it'll seep in, and if it does anything, it might be able to get to her heart. You rub it down the sternum and hope that this is enough to like get her heart pumping, at least get those vital organs working, get this throat stop it from seizing up under its own weight. And then we wait. And we wait. And we wait. And Kathleen says, "What is that stuff?" You see, it's called print salve. It helps with lingering injuries, internal organ damage and things like that. She doesn't seem to have any notable difference or effect. It may just take time, or it may be that the damage is so severe that the amount that it heals is negligible and you can't see it, or it may be that it didn't work at all. What do you do now? Give some water. Give some water. Ask her what could help her. Listen, Edith, I know it's hard for you to talk, but you're the most well-learned healer in this entire town. Do you know what's happened to you? And I'm gonna roll for Edith. I'm gonna roll a medicine check to see if she knows what happened. Let me give myself a DC before I do this. Would she know? Here we go, without touching it. She says, "Yes. Yes." She struggles out the word that we are most longing to hear right now. "Yes." And we say, "Can we fix it?" And she says, I hope so. It doesn't ruin the story, Red Bandana. It takes it in a direction. Like I have an open world. The story continues regardless of which direction it goes. We say, "What is it?" And she said, What is it?
The darkness.
The darkness does this to you.
Yes.
What do I need to do to fix this? And she says,
I need to rest.
you need to rest?
Yes.
Do you need anything from downstairs? And she says,
No. Nothing. Nothing can fix it but rest.
and so taking her at her word, hoping that she's right and that resting will be enough to prevent any further detriment to her person, we pull back the sheets of her bed. The 17 different sheets that old people always have. A duvet, a top cover, another cover, a different sheet. We very, very carefully, between the three of us, the other lady still being somewhere in the house, turning on lights wherever she can find them, we very carefully bring her to her feet. She seems to probably weigh about 30-40 pounds right now, clothes included. We stand her to her feet and we very carefully just lift her into her bed and push her legs under the blankets, and we push the blankets back over the top of her. Toria, can you go get some water, please? And Toria obliges. She runs downstairs to go get water. Kathleen, go grab some of those lanterns and things from around the place. We need to light up this room, keep it well lit. I don't want a single area, even under the bed, nothing. No area in here is to be dark. And she says, understood. And she walks out into the next room and she grabs a lantern off the wall. She comes back in with another one of those oil lamps. There's a few candles that have been lit that the other lady has found, and she sets them up on the table, the mantelpiece. There's a little desk in the corner, writing desk. She sets them up on there and under there, making sure that every nook and cranny. We sort of pull the covers up so that there's no like overhanging covers, and make sure that there's like under the bed is getting some of the light as well from the candles on the floor. We take the next half hour to make sure that this room is well lit, and in that time Edith has passed out. She's unconscious now, in the bed. What's her name? Etoria comes back up with some tea brewed. She seemed to have brewed the water while she was downstairs. She's got a clay cup of water and also a cup of tea as well. And she places it on the table and says, Toria, Edith. And Edith has passed out. So she just leaves it on the side table, ready. And then she turns to you and says, what do we do, Apis? What do we do now? What do you guys think? The other two knights have joined us in the room now, Kathleen and the new girl. If your grandparents ever appear on one of your streams, it would be a bloody miracle if they did. Tea, not water, you barbarian. Water's for animals. Post a guard at the door. She's unconscious. Mel's too far away to fetch for an adrenaline shot. Yeah, she's unconscious in the sense of like she's probably passed out with exhaustion. 2 hours to get to Mel and back. Yep. Can we run? Make it shorter, potentially. Just Toria up like an old person. Set a trap. We could. Either check for Mel, search for footprints, find the one responsible. How? Find a priest, exorcise the demon within her. There probably would be a priest in town. Not necessarily a cleric, but an acolyte. She needs to rest, nothing else to do here but make sure she's okay, as long as she's just passed out, not passed away. We can see that very as gentle as it is, as almost imperceptible as it is, her chest does seem to be rising and falling. We are intelligent enough as well, intelligent and wise enough, with a +3 and a +2 respectively, to make sure that the covers on top of her are not too heavy for her very weak muscles to actually raise up and down, because what might be a regular blanket to a normal person could be like a heavily weighted blanket to her, and we could be suffocating her in the bed. So we make sure to only have one of the sheets, one of the top sheets on her, and the duvet itself, or the doona, or whatever they call it elsewhere, is pulled all the way back. We need to warn the town. Ask the knights to continue their job, and also make sure Edith is guarded, and pop off in a hurry to get Mel. The knights need to warn the town. So we turn to the knights. So a couple of people have... I don't know. What do we do? I think I'm going to pick somebody to decide what we're going to do now, because we're kind of at like a complete crossroads. We can do a lot of different things. I don't want to have to boil it down to 5 particular multiple choice. So now we will write !dark in the chat. !DARK if you want to be in with a chance to decide what Apis is going to do in this moment, now that they've got Edith relatively safe in their bed. The room is well lit and illuminated. The oil in the lanterns might last for like another 6 hours or so, but they'll probably burn themselves out if nobody's here to replenish them. The candles especially will definitely burn out before the end of the night. It is now sundown, so like just after sundown, by the time you've finished with all of your lighting everything in the house and bringing it into the room, it's definitely now officially nighttime. Probably about 6:30 or so. Are there more nights? Yes. So what we know about this town, Bagel, is that there was never really an official establishment of Knights of Kvosna here. It was more that there was a retired Knight of Kvosna named Paul, who took upon himself to be kind of the sheriff of town, and his house doubled as kind of like a law enforcement place. But more recently, he has been pushing to get some actual knight influence here in the town, now that its town is growing a bit. And so he has somewhere on his property that is being built to be an actual barracks. So we don't know how many knights there are. All we know is that we've met Kathleen and Warren, and now we've met this other woman that we haven't introduced ourselves to yet. So there's a lot of things we could do. ! Dark if you want to join that decision. We could come clean to the knights that we're not actually a knight ourselves. We could go to the knights' barracks, for want of a better word, to warn the knights, or we could ask Kathleen to warn the knights on our behalf. We could go out to Jack Reed's farm to check that Mel is okay, because we left her on her own. We could walk door to door asking people for whatever. We could walk door to door telling people of what's happened, what we know, make sure to keep the lights on. I don't know, depends what you want to do. I think we should introduce ourselves to the new knight, come clean. Yeah, we could introduce ourselves. We haven't introduced ourselves yet. Are there any other elderly folk in town? Yes, there are a few other elderly folk in town. It's a town of a population about 100, give or take. ! Dark if you want to be in with a chance. Pull Kathleen aside. Delegate. We've still got Toria. We can give her descriptions of what we want to do. Alright, you've had enough time to enter, so roll it. Bagel Batten. Oh boy, we're in trouble now. Bagel, you still in the chat? Give us a little thumbs up or something if you want to be in with it, if you want to show that you're still here. Uh-oh, there she is. Oh no. Hey Bagel, you are the synapse that takes full control of Apis's mind and body right now. What are you going to do for the story? Why don't y'all trust me? Because you're the only one who said that you should kill Edith before she was even showing signs of sickness, and then you're the only one who said no, we shouldn't cure wounds her. So yes, people are feeling a little bit on edge about the fact that you now have full control over Apis. Apis turns to Kathleen and says, "You take whoever this new lady is and go and warn the rest of the town. Toria, you go to Jack Reed's farm and talk to Mel. Leave me here alone with Edith. I'll look after her." And as they leave the house, Apis pulls a knife out from under their belt. Rip Edith. Bagel's in charge. Bye, Edith. The good news is we'll have a whole bunch more books in our inventory soon. Please, no dumb shit. Don't worry, Rook. For one thing, Bagel is a friend, and I know that she likes to troll, but she wouldn't actually fuck up a story like this. And for a second thing, even if she did try and fuck up the story in a way that's completely against Apis, I always have veto rights. If she turns and says, "I'm going to stab Edith in the face," then I can say no. Bagel with her poo knife. Poo knife? Gross. A win-win. Just Bagel. To be so ridiculous that Rob will have to overrule. Edith has a hunting knife plunged into her ribcage. I don't know how it happened. It just came out of the darkness. Send guards to alarm the Major and the Knights. Set a light guard. Watch Edith. Set up for spell slots. Discreetly change Edith's will to give everything to us. Steal herbalism books. All right. Bagel says, "I think we should tell these knights here to guard her. Go let the other knights know and get their help. The older knight might know some stuff." All right. Okay, legit Bagel, nice. How hard was that for you to write out without any stabbings? You did a good job. Well done. All right. So Apis turns to Kathleen, deciding I'm going to have to come clean to this lady at some point that I'm not actually a knight. But now is not the time. I don't want to take her mind off of what's actually important here. So you say, "Kathleen, you and I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name." And she says, "Where the hell is it?" And I've got a lot of NPCs now. We turn to Kathleen and say, "Listen, Kathleen. You and I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name." And the younger woman says, "Schlefer." You say, "Schlefer." You say, "Yes." And she kind of brushes back her bob, and you see that she's got like slightly pointed ears. And at that you realise that she's a Bridden. She's a half human, half elf. And you say, "Ah, right." Explains it. You spell it LLEFA. Schlefer. And you say, "You and Schlefer, you stay here, guard Edith. Most importantly, do not let this room get dark. I'm going to go to the knights to warn anyone there to help me in warning the town that everybody needs to have their lights kept on as much as possible. Toria coming with us, Bagel? You didn't say what to do with Toria, right? So tell these knights to guard her, get their help. The other older knight might know some stuff. So we're going to go to... We could cut her open, see if there were monsters inside her. But that's not Apis would do, probably. What do you reckon, Bagel? Who is... sorry, a Bridden. B-R-I-D-A-N. Bridden. In my world, that's the name given to half-elf, half humans. Half-elf, half-humans. Schlefer. Schlefer the Bridden. Bring Toria with us? Okay, cool. Or she can go get Mel. She can go get Mel if you tell her to. You're the one in charge right now. Mel is an hour's walk away, and Toria didn't like being alone when she thought it was goblins that was the biggest issue. So if you do tell, hey, go get Mel. So you turn to Toria and say, Toria, could you go to Jack Creed's farm and grab Mel? And she says, on my own? No, I'm sorry, I'm not going. It's like an hour's walk away. and it's nighttime now. And if the darkness is what did this to Edith, I'm sorry, but I'm not going there alone. You say, oh yeah, sorry, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that's okay. So she's going to come with us, I think. So we leave Kathleen and Clefa to guard Edith as she hopefully sleeps. Meanwhile, we head downstairs, back into the shop, back through the kitchen into the shop, through the broken doors. By which time there are a crowd of about half a dozen people there. You recognise that a couple of people are actually starting to come into the shop. And as you come down the stairs, you notice Franklin, your friend the baker, has walked in, and he says, "Apis, what the hell is going on?" What do you guys think? Are we going to tell Franklin what's happening? How are we going to explain it? There's about half a dozen town members here. Franklin is the one that started to walk into the shop. Yes, tell him. Yes, tell him. Tell him. Tell the whole town. Don't tell him the details. Tell him to bake some soup. Edith's going to need it. Tell Franklin in secret. Tell him in private. Spill the beans. They need to stay safe, so tell them. Who knew a regular woman would be terrified of a shadow? The store won't be opening tomorrow. Alright, so we say, there's been an incident. Edith's okay. Just the store won't be opening tomorrow. Franklin, can I speak to you real quick? And he says, yes, of course. And he walks forward, and there's another couple of people start to walk into the shop. And you turn to Toria and say, Toria, could you just don't go saying details yet, but I'll explain to people one at a time. Just keep these people. And she says, yeah, I get you. And she walks over to keep people out of the shop, and she says, sorry guys, can we just stay out of the shop? That we want to. I'll talk to you in the street. And she starts to usher people outside. So we lead Franklin back into the kitchen area of the shop and say, listen, Franklin, here's the thing. Edith was attacked before we got here by something out of the darkness. She says it was the darkness itself, like it was waiting for her in the room, and it came at her like in her dreams or something, and it seemed to sap her energy away. It almost killed her. Thankfully, we got here before it did, I think. And at that moment, we realise, as we're telling him that the darkness was the thing that attacked her, we realised that the shadow against the wall that we saw was cast by something running away, we thought. But now we realise that maybe it wasn't. Maybe we just saw the darkness fleeing the shop once we left the back entrance where the window was open. It might have used that opportunity to escape, and we saw it fleeing down the back wall. When we realise that, we look around ourselves and we realise we're standing in a dark kitchen. It's got a torch lit, a lantern lit, but there are shadows within the kitchen. It's a very cluttered kitchen, as I described it, and so there are lots of dancing shadows from the flickering of the lantern light. And while the upstairs is very, very well lit, she doesn't have an unlimited supply of candles and lanterns and torches and things in the house, and so we had to leave the rest of the house relatively dark in order to light up her bedroom. And we say people shouldn't have darkness around them when as much as possible. It's hard to explain, but the darkness is a problem, and it's been sapping Edith of her strength, apparently in her dreams, but now in reality. I don't know how much to tell people. I'm on my way to some knights are staying with her at the moment. She's safe. We've lit up the room. There's no shadows in the room. No place for darkness to hide. I've left 2 knights on guard with her. I'm going to go to the other knights and warn them. I need you to try and help spread the word that people should not have their lights off when possible. Keep their oil lanterns lit. Keep a light close by their beds. Anyway, I really need to start going. There's urgency here. And so do we tell him anything else, or is that pretty much the gist of it? want to cause a panic or to tip our hand on what we know if the guilty party is part of the crowd. Set the town on fire? Light problem solved. Burn everything! Keep the lights on. That's the gist. Alright, so we tell them that. We head back out into the shop front and we see Toria outside the front, and there's now like 8 or 9 people outside. And we walk out just as Toria's saying, so just try and keep your lights on as much as possible. And they say, like, so what, like like all night? They say, ideally, yes. If you start to feel weak in any way, or if you have dreams of being drained of energy, and they say, one voice calls out, "Is this what killed Howard?" And she says, "Who's Howard?" And he says, "Dickie." She says, "Oh, and then it seems to dawn on Toria that it might have been. We don't know, but it might have been, I suppose. And so you walk up to the crowd. You give them this. You gather from Toria what she's talked about with the rest of them. And you fill them in on any other information without giving them detail of Edith. A few people are like, "Is Edith dead?" And no, Edith's alive. She's resting. She's going to be okay in the morning. I think she seems to think she'll be fine in the morning. I'm going to trust her on that. We need to really get off to the nights now. You go home to tell your neighbours, keep your lights on as much as possible. Lucille said that she had a stock coming over the last couple of weeks, and so her store is well stocked. She told me just yesterday, so she should have oil lanterns. She should have candles. If you head there, she might not be open now, but if you bang loud enough, I'm sure she'll open for you. She'll make an exception. She's and there's some scoffing at that, and she says, "Look, it's strange circumstances. You knew that when you decided to come and live in a frontier town. We're going to have to deal with things that you wouldn't deal with in a city. Okay, so." Let's just work together. We're a community. We can do this. And at that we take Toria and we leave towards the Knights of Kavosna building. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Can we tell the mayor about this? I remember he just dismissed it as signs of old age. True. Yes, we can tell the mayor about it. He's not one of the people in the crowd. We would have to go to the mayor. We're currently walking through the town towards the Knights of Kavosna, as per Bagel's decision. However, I don't think it's too retracting of Bagel's decision for Apis to notice on the way that going to the Knights will be further than going to the mayor. So going to the mayor first might be more on the way. So I don't mind putting it to a decision. Do you guys want to continue on to the Knights to see if you can deal with that first, or do you want to go to the mayor on the way before you get to the Knights? To let him know. What do you guys think? Mayor on the way, mayor and then the Knights. Mayor first. Mayor Jackson needs to be checked in with. The mayor or the Knights. Yes, either one. It's on the way. Yeah, okay. Most people saying the mayor, so hopefully Bagel's... Yeah, Bagel says yes, mayor. Okay, cool. So on the way, we're walking towards the outskirts of town when we say... Toria, actually, the mayor's house is only just a little bit back that way. I'm going to pop by to see Jackson. I think it's important that we see him first. So we make our way up the steps of the mayor's house, and bam, 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 we knock on the door. There's no time for polite knocking in this situation. Bam, 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 every 10 seconds, until eventually we hear him inside. All right, calm it down. What the hell's the noise? You say, "I'm sorry, Jackson, but it's Apis. I need to talk to you urgently." He says, all right, I'm coming. And there's a clicking of a key on the door inside, and he opens it up, and you see the mayor Jackson in regular sort of comfortable clothes. It seems like he wasn't planning on going out tonight. He's sitting down with a nice book or something. You see his house behind him is relatively well decorated. He doesn't tend to like the fancier things in life. He likes the simple things, and he doesn't like really people calling him mayor or being reminded of the fact that he has authority over other people. He's sort of a down-to-earth guy. You also notice that the interior of his house isn't very well lit. There is only a small oil lantern that's on the minimum amount of glow to light this hallway, and behind him you can see into a drawing room where there's a nice fire in the hearth, and it seems like he was about to sit down and read a book. Are we telling him everything? Like, are we sparing any detail? Are we sparing any detail? Are we telling him everything? What do you think? Tell him everything. Yes or no? Tell him everything. Yes or no? Tell him everything. Tell him everything. Reading books is why this happened. Not a shade, a book hunger. All right. Everybody's saying yes. Tell him everything. So we do so. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go over everything now, but we tell him that we had suspicions when we first heard that Edith was feeling a little bit weak. We didn't think too much of it, but then we heard that Dickie, or Howard, had died, and that he was feeling really weak beforehand, which was unusual because he was a carpenter all of his life and he kept himself strong and fit and healthy. And then he just withered away towards the end and became this frail old man that could barely get himself out of bed. Then we went to the Colton's farm and we found that one of their cows had emaciated away to nothing, and it was barely just a skeleton of a cow left in a field. And there were some chickens that were stolen and had their blood drained. There was a few other things, like one of their sheep was torn apart by a wild animal and taken into the forest. So stuff made us feel like something weird's going on. We made our way back to town. We got to Edith's place. It was locked up. She wasn't answering, so I got the knights to open the door. We went upstairs, found her in the same sense. Thought that she'd been emaciated and wasted away, but she was just holding on to life. We cured wounds and applied some Prince Salve. It didn't seem to have a noticeable effect, but we laid her in bed. She said it was the darkness, blah, blah, blah. We give him as much detail as we can. It takes about 10 minutes to get through the entire story. He just sort of listens enraptured, just standing at the door in his dressing gown, listening to the whole thing. Then he says, right, the darkness. Okay. All right. And you say, listen, I've told a few of the people who are rubbernecking that they should keep their oil lanterns lit, blah, blah, blah. And he says, right, you are. You're on the right lines there, Apis. I think I'm going to go order Lucille to open up and start supplying everybody that she can with lanterns and what have you. He gets it. He doesn't even get out of his dressing gown. He just slips off his slippers and puts on his loafers, and then starts setting out. And he goes, right, can I leave you to tell the knights? And you say, aye, I'm on my way there anyway. And so we set off back towards the knights. He goes back over in the direction of the general store to go and tell people on the way, and as he said, open up the general store and get her to start giving out candles and stuff. It's not too much further before we can see Paul's house, which was originally what was being used as the barracks. Only takes about 3 minutes more walking before we get to the edge of Paul's property, and we can see that there is a large house, fairly decent-sized house, with like a conservatory sort of thing that's been tacked onto the edge. That doesn't seem to be in use too much, but there is another building that's being built. It seems like it's a wooden barn of sorts at this stage that is being raised, maybe about a couple of 100 yards away from him. Are we going to his house or the newly being built barracks? Paul is the sheriff of the town. He's a retired Wolverine, a retired Knight of Kvosna. So are we going to his house to warn him, or are we hoping that he's with the rest of the knights in the exterior sort of barn? Probably home. It's evening. Going to his house. All right. Everybody's saying to go to his house first. So we go up to his house. First thing that we notice is that the lights are on downstairs, but not upstairs. We walk up and we bam, 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 bam. A little bit more polite than we did with Jackson. Don't want to freak him out, especially because he's a little bit out on the outskirts of this frontier town. Bum, 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 bum. They're just flatmates are providing Foley for me. So we've knocked on his door and there's been no answer. What do we want to do now? Go to the barracks, check his back door, check for windows, bang louder, start yelling. Go to the barracks, go to the barracks, go to the barracks, shout out, smash the door in, go to the barracks, break the door, go to the barracks. Alright, the majority of people here saying go to the barracks. Start yelling. If you hear no answer, warn him you'll bash the door in. How old is Paul? He's a retired man. He is an elderly man. So we go to the barracks. It's about 100 yards or so away from his main house, so we walk down to that one. We see that it has been erected. All of the walls and ceilings of this house has been on, but all of the interior walls are maybe still in work. As we arrive and we start banging on the door, expecting no reply, but within like 10 seconds or so, somebody opens it. We actually recognise him. He's a young gentleman, probably in his teens, human. His name's Warren, and he is... he doesn't wear any adornments. He's got no cape. He's got no bracer, but we do recognise him from lying to him about a week and a half ago that we were also a knight. He answers the door and he says, "Oh, it's hey," and he looks down at you. "Hey, you're the knight, right? Apis?" And you say, we just sort of avoid the question and say, "Is Paul around?" He says, "No, I think he's in his house. I think he's asleep." And why? And you say, "Right, asleep. It's quite early in the night." He says, "Yeah, but he's not been feeling too good. He's been feeling very weak lately. So I think he's been going to bed a little sooner than usual." At which point our eyes go wide and we say, "Paul's in danger. Come with me now." And he goes, "What? Hey!" And he turns around, "Darren! Grab your things. Paul's in danger." And we turn around and we run the couple of 100 yards back to Paul's house with a couple of knights on our heels. We get to the door and bam! This door is much more well built than the first one. So bam, bam! I'm going to roll an athletics check to see how many times it takes, how long it takes us to actually kick it in. Oops, wrong one. 7. With a 7 athletics check, we do manage to break the door down. It's a matter of time, not a matter of whether we do or not. But it does take us a moment or two. Bam, bam, bam. We're just booting at this door, which also alerts us to the fact that nobody comes to the door. As we are booting this door, harder and harder and harder, you'd expect that if somebody was in, they would definitely hear, no matter where in the house they are. They would definitely hear and they would come down. Nobody's come. Bam, bam, bam. We're smashing at this door. Eventually the knights catch up to us with their gear in, their short sword and long sword respectively on their hips. They get up and they start putting their shoulder into the door. With their help, we manage to smash the door open. We can see into a drawing room where the light was coming from. There's a fire in the hearth that's still illuminated. There's a book that's half open on the table, alongside like a drink that seems to be half drunk. We don't see anybody else in this room. We walk, we rush up the stairs in front of us, up this like ornate wooden staircase. We rush up the stairs and slam open one of the doors. It seems to be a bedroom, but Paul's not in it. We run to another one and bam, smash it open. This one seems to be a master bedroom because there is a 4-poster bed in it, and the curtains are drawn around the 4-poster. There's no sound coming from it. As we rush over, we tear back the curtains to find a dead body of a human that has been drained of such strength as to be entirely skeletal, aside from the fact that all of his soft flesh still remains in his head. His eyeballs are just looking upwards in fear at the canopied roof of his 4-poster bed, but the skin hangs off of a boned skeleton. And we found Paul deceased. And that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. And I'll pick up here next week for episode 20. Thank you very much for joining us.